Over the summer, my husband and I raced across 5 European countries in an amazing race-style vacation over a course of 9 days. The total that we spent was 2,825 euros, or about 3,300 US dollars. I'm gonna break down the complete cost of this trip, how we kind of planned it, and the activities we did, because my goal today is to convince you to visit some of these countries if they're not on your radar yet. If it's your first time seeing me on YouTube, hi, my name is Taylor from Run Away From Home. My husband and I live here in Portugal with our 2 dogs, and we travel the world. We love live music and travel. Normally, we bookend our travel or plan our travel around a concert, live music, festival event. But we're also huge fans of The Amazing Race. We love board games, we love experiencing different cultures and traveling to new places. Over the summer, we decided to make our own Amazing Race. We planned the entire trip full of puzzles and clues and challenges and activities. We packed in so much every single day. It was truly an adventure. And I wanted to share this video of the total cost breakdown in case you wanted to do something like what we did, and to kind of inspire you to visit these countries that you maybe haven't had on your radar yet. The countries we visited were Portugal, where we started, Austria, Slovenia, Croatia. We were supposed to go to Germany. A huge trip disruption happened. We ended up going to Spain before Portugal. I'll get more into that later. But for now, I wanted to really share what these countries are like and maybe inspire you to visit them, especially Slovenia, which was the core of our trip and the main reason why we planned this entire Amazing Race experience. Slovenia, especially Ljubljana, was never really on our radar until we watched The Amazing Race. So that was the real inspiration for the trip. And we also had been wanting to visit Austria, a country that was new to us as well. This video is going to break down the cost so that if you wanted to do some of the activities we did on our trip, or all, you can do that and know exactly what you're getting into. We paid for this trip using a combination of points and money. So I'll share some of those tips and how we did it. We don't have crazy credit card benefits or anything like that. This is kind of like if you were planning it as an average person wanting to visit these countries, here's how we did it. I told Mike that I could plan this entire trip for under 2,000 euros. The upfront costs that we spent for travel and accommodations that had to be pre-booked, as well as activities, was 1,971 euros. Which is about $2,325. So I kind of kept to my word. However, we also had daily costs. So food, drinks, beverages, last minute activities or activities we couldn't book in advance, things like metro tickets, stuff like that. Those were kind of our daily expense costs. That came to 854 euros, which is about $1,000. For the rest of the video, I'm only gonna be talking about this in euros. You know, it is Europe, so all of the countries we visited were within the EU and used the euro, which made it really easy to travel quickly between all of the different places. The most expensive part for us was actually the transportation. So it's for 2 people, right? So that's flights, trains, all of that came to 1,113 euros. And accommodation came to 800 euros. Part of the reason that our accommodation only came to 800 euros for 9 nights, so that's less than 100 euros a night, is we booked some of our accommodation with points, and we also booked some with staying in things like guest houses. Guest houses were actually new to us for this trip. We had never stayed in one before, and they're not as common in the US, so this was a cool experience as well. I'll get more into the details. I'm just breaking it down from big costs to smaller costs. So the overall trip cost, and then I'm gonna break it down by country and the activities and all of that. So this is gonna be a series. If you're looking for a specific country, you can skip to that chapter, skip to that part of the video series. The total cost for all of our activities, that's the cliff jumping in Lake Bled, all of our boat rides, escape the castle game in Ljubljana, all of that costs a total of 250 euros. Our food costs for the entire trip were 692 euros. This video is really focusing on the logistics and the costs. If you want to see us do these activities and actually what they were like, go watch this series. We shared it all, the good, the bad. There's a little bit of bad I didn't share yet, so I'm gonna get to that at the end because it was the most unexpected cost and it was significant. I asked Mike for his 3 favorite activities for the entire experience, and we actually had some overlapping ones. His favorites were the escape the castle game in Ljubljana, Slovenia, the boat to the island in Lake Bled and being able to swim there and looking back at Lake Bled, it was so beautiful. And the train from Vienna to Ljubljana. It was, I mean, that was a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's beautiful. The views were just something that I've never experienced before, either one of us. My highlights were the cliff jumping in Lake Bled. That was a dream come true activity for me, and I would do that again and again. The canyoneering in Lake Bled with altitude activities, I would do that every day if I could. It truly was so fun. Mike said he was happy to have done it once, but he would not be probably doing it again. The train was also a highlight for me. That was another activity that was actually inspired by The Amazing Race. We did the exact route they did from Vienna to Graz to Ljubljana. And the escape the castle game for me too. So those are, if you're gonna do anything, you've got to do those activities: the escape the castle, the canyoneering, the train, and the Lake Bled experiences. So first of all, when I planned this Amazing Race journey, I basically broke everything down into a spreadsheet by the leg that we would be doing it. I kept track of every single meal that we purchased, every single cost associated with every part of this trip, so I can give you a 100% unfiltered cost breakdown. Mike and I had not been to the majority of the places that we visited on this trip, and I was the primary person that was creating the clues and the puzzles and the challenges. Mike also created them as well. So sometimes when you see in our series, I'm reading a clue and I'm the primary person doing the challenge, a lot of the times that's because Mike wrote it. We did not tell each other what we were doing ahead of time. We just knew where we would be, and we wrote all these challenges in secret. I wrote them so far in advance that sometimes I completely forgot the clue because it was, you know, at least 5 clues every single day and activities throughout the day, challenges. I didn't know how they'd actually play out because I hadn't been there. So we were doing these challenges whether or not they made sense once they were there. Miraculously, it all worked really, really well. A really fun part of this trip and of this series was creating it, thinking about what we can do, being kind of confident that we can make it work even though we've never been to these places. So when you see us talking about almost missing our train because we had 90 seconds to get onto the connection, that was all real. We can't plan that stuff in advance. So this trip was one of those where you gotta roll with the punches, and we very much did that. If you are an adventure traveler and you're cool with like kind of doing things on the fly and stuff, this is gonna be the trip for you. If you're a little bit more of the you only wanna do one activity per day, you can totally pick and choose which activities you do. Another part about this trip was that we didn't use our phones. So we were going offline. We printed everything out ahead of time. So we hand wrote the clues and challenges, but we printed out the maps, we printed out our tickets that we had in advance if we had them, the codes, the confirmations, hotel information, all of that, we printed it out. So it was very much like The Amazing Race where we were offline. We did not rely on our phones for things like directions and getting around towns and stuff. We really were just fully committed to doing The Amazing Race Taylor's version. I planned the entire trip using a spreadsheet and marked out the times for our transportation, what they were, the address, all of that. That is this spreadsheet is what I then use to create the clues. So I would put in a map with the hotel we were staying at for a pit stop. That would be the pit stop we would have to find and navigate it. The only time we did use our phones was when the clues indicated we needed to use an Uber and Bolt. In today's world, it's just more realistic that you're going to use rideshare instead of a taxi. All of the countries we went to had rideshare available. The way I'm going to break down the costs into the more detailed versions is by leg of our race, so that's the episode basically. It happens to be mostly by the country. Part of the goal for this trip was that once we were there and, boots on the ground, we were at these places, we weren't going to restrict ourselves. We were going to let ourselves enjoy all the meals. We were going to pay for all the activities we wanted to do. In general, we tend to be more frugal people, we're budget conscious people, but we wanted to make this trip a trip of a lifetime. So we spent what we wanted to spend, we ordered what we wanted to order, and let me tell you, the food is amazing in Slovenia. So it was really easy to get super full on a pretty low cost. So I'm going to break down everything. So if you wanted to book this trip exactly, you can do just that. And you'll get some cost saving tips along the way. Let's get into it. Here's the cost breakdown for leg 1 and leg 2, which will take us from Lagos, Portugal to Ljubljana, Slovenia. We started in Lagos, that's where we live. The best way to travel out of Lagos, especially around other EU countries, is through the Faro airport. It's about 90 minutes from Lagos by train. When you saw that we caught the earlier train, that was real. We had our train tickets. We didn't know that we'd be able to leave that early, and so we headed to the train station in Lagos. You can exchange in Portugal your train tickets for a different time if you pre-purchased it. You just have to show your purchase. You have to ask to exchange the ticket for the new time that you want, and they will do that for you at zero cost, as long as the ticket price is the same. If there is a difference in the pricing for the tickets, they'll charge you that difference. I always use the CP app in Portugal, or my CP account, cp.pt, to book all trains around Portugal. Something that you absolutely need to have if you are going to be visiting here. I actually have a full article on apps you need to download before visiting Portugal. Most of them have to do with transportation, so you can check that out if you're going to be coming to Portugal. The train tickets were €8 per person. Once we arrived in Faro, we have our favorite sandwich place. We have eaten at that place before, the one with the pork sandwiches, so good. The cost for our 2 pork sandwiches and 2 beers was €12. The train station in Faro isn't that close to the airport, so we typically take an Uber from the airport, from the train to the airport and vice versa from the airport to the train station. The Uber from the train station to the airport in Faro costs €4.80. That's usually my favorite and easiest way to get to the Faro airport from Lagos train, and then you take a short Uber. Mike and I have Priority Pass. It is a lounge pass for airport lounges. We have it through one of our credit cards. If you can get Priority Pass and you are doing a lot of travel in a lot of different airports, it can save you a ton of money. Because of that, even though our detour was eating the pork sandwiches or choosing the lounge, our flight was delayed, so we had time to do both. After we made it to the airport, we went to the lounge in Faro as well, and that is where we had some food and drinks before our flight. Free because we have Priority Pass. Flight from Faro to Vienna was €226. That included 2 tickets, one-way tickets, and our backpacks. Our backpacks met the Ryanair dimensions for a carry-on. You have to pay for a carry-on on Ryanair, and they are extremely strict when it comes to sizing of your bags. So we purchased backpacks, I have a whole video on that too, that exactly meet the Ryanair carry-on limitations. The most common budget airlines across the EU are going to be Ryanair, Vueling, EasyJet, Wizz Air, and Eurowings. If you're not from Europe, but you're visiting Europe, just get the cheapest plane ticket to Europe and you can usually find a budget airline from there. One cost-saving tip for flights on these budget airlines is don't pay to book your seat. It's not worth it. We never pay for a seat assignment, and oftentimes we're seated together anyway. So just don't waste your money paying for a seat. Pay for your bags and your butt to be in a chair. Because our flight was delayed, when we landed, almost no food options were open in Vienna, near where we were staying, or even at the airport. So we spent €22 on Burger King. That was our first meal in Vienna. From there, public transportation was also shut down. As you can see in our leg one video, we had to take an Uber. An Uber from the airport to where we were staying at the Marriott Courtyard was 33 euros. Uber's a lot more expensive in every country that we went to than it is in Portugal. Our hotel for that night one, where we got in at about 2:30 in the morning and then left at 9:30 in the morning or 9 in the morning, that hotel was $0. We booked that hotel using our Marriott Bonvoy points. If you have a credit card that gives you points, you can oftentimes transfer it to your Bonvoy account, which is Marriott's loyalty program. Points go so much further in Europe than they do in the US and even Mexico. So we often will use our points that we accumulate through loyalty programs in random cities and towns on European travel. The points for us at this hotel, which normally would cost around 200 euros a night, it was 16,000 points. We got a smoking deal. If you're traveling around Europe and you have points on different various loyalty programs, check them, because 200 euros for 16,000 points, like, that's a great deal. Compared to the US, 16,000 points gets you almost nothing. Because we have Bonvoy and we're gold members of Bonvoy, we also always get free upgrades. So that's why we had that corner room. It had a wonderful view of a racetrack. It was really, really cool. We would have stayed there many nights if we could, but we were on a race. The next thing on the race was taking the U-Bahn, which is a public transportation system in Vienna. An individual one-way ticket was €2.60. I think it's raised to €3.20 now. And we ended up buying 4 one-way passes throughout our time in Vienna. So we spent a total of €10.40 on the U-Bahn. From there, we went on the Vienna Ferris wheel. Obviously, that was a sponsored experience. That was one of the challenges, was to create a video sponsored by Head Out. We got most of it comped for us, so it came out to €4 out of pocket for like a fee. The Ferris wheel would typically cost about €15. It was a really cool experience, especially because it was so accessible. If you're going, I would recommend visiting that park, seeing if you want to take the Ferris wheel, or just seeing if you want to explore the area, because it was really cool. We had such a short time in Vienna, this was an awesome way to see it all. The reason we chose Vienna before Ljubljana is because the price of the flights to Vienna plus the train ride to Ljubljana was overall better than flying to Ljubljana. Ljubljana does not have a huge airport, so you're often going to have a long layover somewhere else, usually really far out of the way, and you're probably going to spend more money. So because our hotel was free, we were able to fly directly from Faro to Vienna and then take that beautiful train to Ljubljana. That made the most sense for us. I would recommend doing that to anyone visiting Ljubljana, is to actually arrive in a nearby airport and then find transportation there instead of flying directly into Ljubljana. There are many ways you can get there via train, and all of them are so beautiful. Recommend. Once we arrived into the train station at Vienna, we got those meat sandwiches. Those were €13 for the sandwiches and our beers. I also got snacks for the train. I wasn't sure what food and drink options would be available on the train, so I spent €12 on snacks for pastries and pretzels. The cost of the train itself was €65 for both of us, and this was a dream come true experience. This was Mike's #1 thing he wanted to do on this trip. So what you saw of us getting a code and entering a code into the station, that's how you pick up your tickets. You can choose different delivery options. That's what we picked. The train was an all-day experience, and for about €30 per person, I would do it again and again and again. It was beautiful. They have a restaurant. You can actually sit in the restaurant. It has huge windows. You get even a bigger view if you're eating in the restaurant. We ended up just buying some beers and water and spent €12 on the train. The train ticket from Vienna to Ljubljana was all included in that €65 price. We didn't have to buy a separate ticket for our connection to Ljubljana. Once we arrived in Ljubljana, the first challenge of finding those historic landmarks was free. But the food that you see us eating at the end, it was a Ljubljana boat and a pizza and beers. We absolutely love Union beer, by the way. We found out about that for the first time in Ljubljana, and we had that throughout the whole trip. You gotta have a Union beer. That's what they sell there, and it's delicious. That food, we spent €33. That is the overall cost breakdown of the trip and for legs 1 and 2. This next part, I'm going to go in deeper into Slovenia costs. That was the core of our trip, so I wanted to dedicate a full video to it. So keep on watching if you want to see all of those costs.